Hi, moms and dads. Thank you for joining us for today's Ask the Expert session with Dr. Kristine Gutierrez.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Hello, everyone.
Okay, we are very lucky because today we are talking about a topic that is very relevant to moms when we start the first few months we start feeding our babies or whenever there's a change in weather, this always comes up. So we're talking about allergies. And we are very, very fortunate because Dr. KG, so we're calling her Dr. KG, is very well versed in the topic. She's an expert. She heads the pediatrics department for, let me get this right, allergies, asthma, and clinical immunology in the World City Hospital.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and she's also a member of the UST faculty, and she's also written a lot of studies on it. So again, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. KG. Yay! Please clap with me wherever you may be. If you're at home, if you're in a commute, please clap. Okay. Okay. So we were discussing a little bit about allergies a while ago, and I guess the first thing we really have to do is to define it. So if you could please define allergies for us.
Well, for starters, when you talk about allergies, it's actually an overreaction, or what we say, OA reaction, of our body to things we commonly see in the environment, which we call allergens.
Okay.
And when we talk about allergies, it is a systemic disease. It can affect the eyes, like an allergic conjunctivitis. If you start to
Yeah.
blink your eyes all every morning, or you start to be teary-eyed in the morning, it can affect the nose, like in allergic rhinitis, the airways, like in bronchial asthma, the skin, like in urticaria, or what we call hives,
Oh,
or
yes.
in Filipino we call it tagulabay. And it can be also atopic dermatitis. Sometimes we call it AD, or eczema.
Okay, yes.
Or it can
Very
be as
common.
fatal as anaphylaxis. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yeah, sort of. Maybe
So-
in movies.
Yes,
and
in
shows,
movies,
scary.
that's where you can see it. So that's what you call, that's allergy. So it's
Oh,
really
wow.
a lot of diseases put together.
Wow. Okay. We were talking a while ago also about atopic march. Could you just help define that for
So
audience, please?
when we talk about atopic march, it's a natural progression of allergic disease. So if, let's say, for example, initially your baby has eczema or atopic dermatitis with or without food allergies, meaning sometimes your food allergies can trigger your eczema, or your food allergies can manifest as other things like diarrhea, bloody diarrhea, or even urticaria. So initially, that will be the initial presentation. Then after a while, your baby can appear to have the rashes could be gone. After a while, your baby has wheezing. So it's what you call bronchial asthma. Then probably at around 7 or 8, they would say, "Oh, the bronchial asthma's gone." But after a while, you see the kids having sipon, or what we call colds.
Okay.
So they start the sniffles, yeah. Or sometimes there's an itchy throat, so they go.
Yeah.
So this can be allergic rhinitis.
Oh.
So that's the usual progression of what we call atopic march. But unfortunately, there are some individuals who are in all of these atopic dermatitis are there
At the same time.
at the same time. So there is also a possibility for that.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Okay, so we've heard already a few key insights and learnings, but we're gonna go ahead straight to your questions. Okay, so let us go to our very first question, which is I think we'll start with something that's quite general. What causes an allergic reaction?
So when we talk about allergies, as I mentioned earlier, it's things we commonly see in the environment, wherein other people who are not allergic, when they get exposed to that, for example, dust, they're not going to react. But once once you're an allergic person, you get exposed to that, you develop what we call IgE antibodies to that. You start reacting. So if you're asking what are the possible causes, we have what we call allergic causes. So it can be in the air, like your dust or your pets,
I have that.
or even the pollens outside, like the grass or the trees, and it can be your food. So
Okay.
all of these are possible, what we call allergens or causes of our allergies.
So is that basically two main categories?
In a
Intake
way,
and
yes, we
environment?
have what we call our inhalant allergens, and we also have our food allergens.
Okay, so just
In the Philippines, the most common in the Philippines would be our dust mites. So these are what we call indoor allergens. So these are the allergens we find inside the house. So what tops the list is still our dust mites. Some people would ask, what are dust mites? Are these the bed bugs? I tell them it's different.
No.
Your dust mites are microscopic organisms. They're relative of spiders. they basically feed or eat, quote and unquote, our dead skin. That's why it's abundantly found. I see
So
reactions.
much food.
I see reactions all around. But anyway, that's why it's more commonly seen in the bedroom. That's where we sleep. That's where we shed off our So that's the reason why if you have dust mite allergens, you have to change your sheets regularly.
So that's
Yes.
the preventive
Yes.
measure for that.
Another common indoor allergen would be the molds.
Oh no.
Amag, when we call it in Filipino. So the molds, of course, if it's really humid or that's where it grows in the bathroom. Another common one are the cockroach allergies. Oh yeah, they're common triggers
Like,
for indoor
Just
allergens.
by being in the environment.
Yes,
or from
usually they
bites?
say it's the dead cockroach. It could really
Oh.
or what do you call this, activate your allergic response. So apart from that, when we go outside, so we call it an outdoor allergens. In the Philippines, the most common would be our grasses, Bermuda grass, Carabao grass, all the other grasses. Likewise, the tree pollens, and weeds. Okay. Now, when we talk about food, on the other hand, the other type of allergen, all food are potentially allergenic. That's why people would keep on asking me, what am I supposed to avoid? I really do not give like a list of food to be avoided. Because you have to be quite sure that this child is actually allergic to that. Because sometimes you tend to deprive them.
Yeah.
And when they come to me, it turns out they don't have allergies to that. So they're saying, Mom, I told you, I don't have allergies. I can eat that. So if you want to ask me what are the common allergens, so worldwide, it's still cow's milk,
Okay.
eggs,
Okay.
wheat, soy, fish, shellfish, peanuts, and tree nuts. So those are the top. In the Philippines, still the leading ones would be cow's milk, eggs, and shellfish.
Okay. So, but should these be? How should we approach? I mean, again, we don't want to deprive our kids
Mhm.
of these yummy things. So, how do we approach introducing these foods to our children?
Now, to start with, you have to see whether your child is really allergic to that or not. You have to observe your child. Let's say, for example, if it's shellfish allergy, usually when they eat it, if they develop a reaction immediately within 15 minutes to about 2 hours, then most probably that is the cause. No? If you're talking about the usual allergies that we're talking about, because some people would tell me, I ate this like yesterday or a week ago, probably it caused my allergies, then less likely is that the cause. It should be at least immediate once you take it. No? So back to your question, like how can we know it? Number one, a very good history. Probably it's good if you go to an allergist or a doctor for that matter. For us allergies, we have tests that we can do in order to try to zero
that was
in.
the next question we were going to ask
Okay.
from Mommy Mia. Okay.
Try to zero in on what you're allergic to. We call it a skin prick test. Okay, so it's not an injection. I always tell my
I know.
patients it's not an injection.
Saw my face.
Okay. How can you do that? Not to your kids. No? So I usually do it in the arm. For kids who are a bit scared, we do it at the back.
Okay.
So we just line and then drop the allergen and then prick.
Oh, okay.
Prick. So it's not, some people think it's a syringe and then I inject it. It's not
It's just
like
like
that. So you just nick the skin.
Okay.
Then after 15 to 20 minutes, if you see wheal and flare, meaning some form of redness, then probably you're allergic to that. No? So there are two kinds of tests we do. We have what we call our test for the inhalant allergens and the food allergens. Now, I think some people would ask me, how specific is it?
Yeah, like I assume there are a lot of
Yeah,
allergens.
there are a lot. So let's say, for example, if you talk about inhalant allergens, if you're truly positive to that, if your test comes out positive, you're 98% sure that you're allergic to that.
Okay.
If you're negative, you're almost also around 98% sure you're not allergic to that. It's quite different when it comes to food allergies. Okay? If you're positive, there's only a 50% chance you're really allergic to that. You have to go to the next step, which is an oral food challenge. Okay?
Sounds yummy.
However, in your skin prick test for food allergens, if you're negative, you're almost sure you're not allergic to that because it has 97 to 98% sureness, quote and unquote, that you're not allergic to that. The reason why I perform the skin prick test, especially to food, is just to prove to the mom that they're not allergic to that, especially for chicken.
Oh, okay.
I think chicken is one of the staple food like all kids have.
Poor kid. If you
Yeah,
can't
so
have
I usually
fried
test
chicken.
them.
Come on.
So I usually test them to that, and it comes out more often than not. They come out negative to chicken. So they go, Mom, I can now eat chicken. So they're like very,
Please
very
feed
happy
your
with
children
that.
chicken.
So it's not a common allergen. However, egg is a common one. So they always ask me, how come the egg they're allergic not to the chicken? Which came first?
The chicken or the egg allergy?
Yeah, unfortunately, the one that causes our allergies are the proteins. Not the fats, not the carbohydrates in food. It's the proteins. And the protein in egg is quite different from the protein in the chicken. So that's the reason why it's not automatic for them to really react to the chicken.
Oh,
So I always tell them the poor chicken.
Poor chicken.
Yeah. So that's what you call it. And of course, apart from that, we also have another option, the test when we draw blood. So you get the blood, and then they can measure the specific allergies that you have.
Is it another option? Is it a little bit more accurate, or
probably a bit more? Not a bit. It's a lot more expensive, a bit pricey, but it is available here. We have it here in the Philippines.
Okay, cool. Okay, so speaking of just introducing foods and doing tests, one question we have from Mommy Chell is, my baby had a food allergy before 1 year old, and I believe in desensitization. What is your take on this?
Okay. We talked about desensitization. So in desensitization, the principle there is you try to introduce the possible allergen in such a way that your body will develop what we call blocking antibodies, and at the same time, it can stimulate a part of your immune system that can help regulate or downgrade your allergic reaction. Unfortunately, for desensitization, right now, based on evidence, it's only proven for inhalant allergens. So when I talk about inhalant allergies, this is your allergic rhinitis and your bronchial asthma.
So from the dust mites?
From the dust mites to your dog, to your cat, to your pollen, you can desensitize them to that. Unfortunately, for food allergen, not yet. That's a sad thing. A lot of my patients would keep on asking me, Doctor, if I'm allergic to seafood, can I eat it little by little in such a way that I would get to tolerate it? No? I tell them, unfortunately, you cannot, because you come out positive and you develop a reaction, you cannot, because you cannot predict what kind of reaction you'll have if you eat it little by little. You've heard me say earlier about anaphylaxis.
Yes.
So when we get there. Yeah, we don't like. So, well, for some people, when we talk about anaphylaxis, it's the severe kind of allergy. So once you get exposed to the allergen, let it be food or stings of your bee or something, then after that, you're going to develop the hives or the itchy red bumps. Sometimes there could be swelling followed by difficulty in breathing. So that's a severe kind of allergy. No? So sometimes it cannot only be difficulty of breathing. Sometimes it's loss of consciousness. It's severe abdominal pain. You start vomiting. I had one patient who had the presentation of abdominal pain. Of course, there should also be the rash together with the abdominal pain. So I checked the BP. The BP is very low. So the patient is undergoing anaphylaxis. Of course, your next question will be, what will I do? Am I right? You could say, right in front of me, my child is having anaphylaxis. Well, first of all, the treatment for anaphylaxis is only epinephrine.
You have to inject it.
Yeah, injected. Yeah. So I'm glad you talked about EpiPen. So EpiPen, yeah. So that's the one. I don't know if in the movies you see like the dramatic one they in the thigh. The reason why they put it in the thigh is because it has bigger muscle mass. Therefore, it's faster onset of action. That's why you have to inject with drama.
With drama.
Yes. Unfortunately, we don't have it in the Philippines.
Okay.
EpiPen.
Okay. So what are moms to do? If you see?
I know. So, like for example, in our society, in the Philippine Society of Allergy, Asthma and Immunology, we have what we call EpiKit.
Okay.
So in the EpiKit, you have a vial of your epinephrine. You have to pop it open, draw, and then inject.
So basically, once you see signs of that, just rush your child to the ER.
Yes, but if it's like your the second time, you should always be ready at home. Have it ready at home because it is very much life-saving. Then after that, you have to rush your child to the hospital.
That's just the first aid.
That's the first aid, nothing more. Not your antihistamines, not your steroids, it's your epinephrine.
So we have a very interesting question
Yes.
here. Is it true that from Mommy Lynette? Is it true na first aid for allergy ang breast milk effective or not?
Okay, unfortunately, breastfeeding has a lot of benefits. Okay, but as first aid for allergies, it's not. Because your first aid for allergies, if let's say for example it's allergic rhinitis, then you have to give your antihistamines, preferably a less sedating antihistamine. If you have urticaria or what we call hives, then also your first line would still be your antihistamines. If you have your bronchial asthma, then it's your nebulizer with the beta 2 agonist. Either in the Philippines we have salbutamol and terbutaline. So those would be your first. That would be your first aid. And of course, for anaphylaxis, it's your EpiPen.
Yeah, you need your Epi kit.
It's your EpiKit.
Actually, I was just scrolling through this ParentTown. Right. And another question that I saw is that a mom was saying that her child her breastfed baby had an allergic reaction. Could it have possibly been through something she ate?
Okay. One thing about breastfeeding, it's the best way for us to prevent allergies. So, yeah. So I keep a lot of my
Good
patients
news
with
for breastfeeding.
a lot of my patients ask me, doctor, especially because I also see adult patients. So once there was a pregnant mom who goes, I'm really, really allergic. Is there a way for me to prevent my baby from having allergies? I told them, unfortunately, right now, the only one that's proven is breastfeeding. So if you breastfeed for at least 6 months, and if you can go beyond that, then so much better. It is preventive for allergies, particularly atopic dermatitis, your food allergies, also to a certain extent your wheezing, or what we call bronchial hyperactivity. So these are asthma-like symptoms. So those are the ones that are proven for us to prevent allergies in terms of breast milk. And then she's asking whether or not the child can be allergic to something that they ate. Yes, it is a possibility. But I don't know if she's mixed feeding also. Because when it's mixed feeding, it changes everything. So it should be purely breastfed. Yes, there's a lot of things.
This one this is from Mommy Mia. Are stress and allergies linked?
Oh yes, definitely.
Oh, really?
Although stress may not at all trigger it at once, it worsens it. I have a lot of patients, especially for
it's
adult
not
patients.
okay.
For it is a possibility also. It can worsen it also. But initially,
Kailangan natin relax.
yeah, I have a lot of patients, especially adults. There's what you call dermatographism. Okay, so we talk about in English, please. I'm just kidding. We talk about dermatographism. It's a form of allergy wherein once you stroke the skin, where it is, you suddenly develop redness. Some people think it's a severe allergy or dry skin. Then they have the hives. Or sometimes in the face, they scratch it like that, and then their face would become red. That's dermatographism. Sometimes we also have to call pressure urticaria, pressure allergies. So when they carry heavy bags to take it out, where the bag is, it's very heavy. When they wear tight underwear, they take it out and they have hives in that area. So that's a form of allergy also. Now for stress, they keep on scratching it. So probably it's a reaction. Sometimes they do that.
Yeah. So relax. So
Learn how to deal with the stresses. I would say.
have the husband clean the room so that there are no cockroaches and dust mites, and
That's
you
cute.
relax.
That's very cute. But they've actually shown that in patients with atopic dermatitis or eczema, especially in older children and older people, stress can aggravate. I have a lot of patients
Poor kids.
who are adolescents and even adults. If they have their midterms or their exams, they start flaring up, or their atopic dermatitis would start to flare up.
Okay, so
Yeah.
don't pressure your kids. It's okay. This is a question from again Mommy Mia, I think. What is the difference between food allergy and food intolerance?
Okay, there is a difference. When you talk about food allergy, it is an IgE-mediated reactions. So when I talk about IgE-mediated reactions, it's immediate. Okay. Food intolerance is quite different. Very, very different. So I know there's like what you call the food intolerance test, etc. Your food intolerance test cannot at all detect whatever you're allergic to. Because they don't test what we call IgE, package is the
The-
one that is for allergies.
Okay. So, speaking of shots, effective po ba ang allergy shots? Kailangan po ba yun i-maintain?
Yes.
Salamat po from Mommy Isabel.
Okay. We talk about allergy shots. When we talk about allergy shots, it's also called immunotherapy. Okay. So in immunotherapy, as I mentioned earlier, it is wherein you try to develop your blocking antibodies and develop the cells that will try to down-regulate your allergic reaction. So it's only effective for inhalant allergens. For food, no?
Food forever.
So how long?
Food is forever.
For my patients, it's quite long because you have to be injected weekly for 6 months, every 2 weeks for the next 6 months, then monthly for 3 to 5 years.
Wow, so it
So
takes
that's
5
it
years
is.
for you
Yes,
to...
roughly 5 years for you to control. But I have a lot of patients who have been undergoing immunotherapy, and honestly, they've improved. It's not 100%, I told them. For some, it's really 100%, but for those who have very severe reactions, especially those who get confined regularly for asthma or they have severe allergic rhinitis, that's an allergy to the nose, they get their relief in terms of quality of life is really great.
Yeah.
Around 70 to 80% improvement.
It's
So
grass, it's pollen.
exactly.
It's
Or even dust.
Yeah.
So that's
You
what
want to
we
be able
usually.
to sleep,
Yes.
I suppose.
But again, I would like to stress for food, it's not recommended.
This question is from Daddy Eric. At what point do most children start to outgrow their food
Oh,
allergies?
that's a very nice question. It's a common question that I have. Thanks, Daddy. So anyway, for food allergies, there are certain food that we cannot outgrow. For example, shellfish allergy, fish allergies, and peanut allergies can rarely be outgrown. There's an extremely small percentage that can outgrow that.
Wow.
However, for cow milk allergy and egg allergies, it can be outgrown. Up to 1-year-old or 3-year-old, then they can outgrow.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So this is I don't even know what this is, but so I'm just gonna ask it out from Mommy Maya. It's very specific. Yung pamangkin ko po, my nephew or my niece is positive for G6PD, and according to his or her pediatrician, he or she cannot have foods with soy content. But I want to have him try it. Is it recommendable?
Start with G6PD is not an allergy.
Oh.
So it's a completely different thing. I get a lot of questions like that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a surprise. We talk about G6PD. It's a problem in what we call the red part of our blood or our red blood cells. So when they get exposed to certain substances, it suddenly bursts. Okay, your red blood cells. So what happens is that you get anemia or low blood. We call it get anemia, or to the extreme you turn yellow. We call it jaundice. No? So that's the effect. Unfortunately, it's not like allergies where it's immune mediated. Therefore, usually for patients who are positive for G6PD, they get they give a list, and then they have to avoid
it
that
at all
okay?
costs.
At all costs.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as you give it little by little or quote unquote desensitize. You cannot do that for patients with G6PD because they might start having anemia. So it's different.
So this one is very light, very interesting.
Mhm.
Can you suggest pets or dog breeds that are hypoallergenic?
Okay. To start with, you have to confirm whether your child is allergic to the dog or the cat. Okay. Now, if it's really positive that they're allergic to the dog or cat, then you have to really avoid. There's no such thing as a hypoallergenic dog or a hypoallergenic cat.
Sorry.
So unfortunately, it's like that. So usually, I let the parents choose. You can choose either the dog or the baby.
Or fish. Get a fish.
But more often, not they choose the baby. Don't worry about that. But yeah, you can also tell them that there are other forms of pets, like the fish.
Yeah.
Like my son is allergic, so he has a fish. Or a
Iguana. ganyan.
tarantula. Stuff like that. But unfortunately, you have to let them get tested first because you have to be sure they're allergic to that. Because if not, then. But there's no such thing as a breed of a hypoallergenic.
Okay, sorry guys. Okay, so this one is, I suppose very common for mommy Francine. My baby's back gets dry and scaly, especially when the weather is humid or when she sweats a lot. Is this a skin allergy?
It depends on where it is. So number one, we talk about, I think she's more or less concerned about atopic dermatitis
Because it's
or
dry
eczema.
and scaly.
Yes, yes, dry and scaly. So number one, there should be a family history of allergies. So when I ask about family history, it's not just atopic dermatitis. So you have to ask, do you have asthma? Do you have allergic rhinitis? Do you have other food allergies? Then if it's yes, then number one, yes, you're genetically predisposed. Number two, does it itch? It should itch. And then the third one is there are areas wherein they usually can come out. So for babies, it's the cheeks, then here, and the back of the legs. When you get older, it changes here.
Oh, when you get older, where does it transfer?
In the other part, not here but here. And then sometimes the neck can get affected, or the whole body. So the treatment for any allergies for that matter. Okay, let's talk about generalities and treatment for allergies. Number one treatment to allergies is avoidance.
Okay.
Because no matter
Makes
how
sense.
much medication I give you, if you get exposed to what you're allergic to, then it's going to come back.
Yeah.
I tell my patients, I guarantee you I can cure you, but I guarantee you it's coming back. Once you get exposed to your allergens, it's going to
Get
be
rid
there.
of the source.
Yes, because allergies has no cure. You can only control it, but you can live a normal life.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the three things that are important. Now, when you talk about atopic dermatitis, apart from avoiding the triggers, number two, you have to choose the proper wash and emollient for you. Okay, you have to go to your pediatrician or your allergists for you to try to see what emollient or what wash can be used for your babies, because you really have to maintain that.
Okay. So just avoid those.
Yes. So for allergic rhinitis, and of course apart from the antihistamines, you have your controller medications, also for your bronchitis.
So this one is I think very common from City. How can I tell whether my child has allergies or the common cold?
Okay. That's a very nice question, because people come to me that they think their child is prone to infection because they have recurrent colds. So number one, usually if it's an allergy, it occurs, if it's allergic rhinitis, no? It occurs in the morning, it's gone in the afternoon time.
Okay.
So it's usually episodic. When they sneeze more than 5 times in the morning, usually that's an allergy.
So sneezing.
Yes, sneezing, you have what you call the colds, and nasal itchiness. So sometimes in the States they call it nasal salute because they keep on doing that. In the Philippines we call it, they love to pick their nose. So in the Philippines they call
It's
it
itchy.
picking up the nose. So some parents come with pick the nose in the morning because it's itchy. So that's something. I can spell. So that's how you distinguish one. Now when it's the common cold, usually the colds or the sipon, as you would say, would be there the whole day. Plus, there are systemic symptoms. For example, you have fever, you have body aches, you have cough. Then more often than not, it's the common cold.
Okay. So I think we have time for one last question. Okay. Does newborn screening help parents detect early signs of allergy?
Okay. Unfortunately, for newborn screening is what we call a metabolic screening. So your allergies are not included to that. So they test different set of diseases for that, because for newborn screening, the early detection can lead to a better life for your child once you detect it earlier. So it's a good one. As a matter of fact, right now we have the expanded newborn screening in case some of the moms don't know it. So it's good if you ask your pediatricians about it. It used to be like only 5 or 6 diseases. Now they can extend it more. I'm not so sure how many. But it's good if you can ask for what they call expanded newborn screening.
Okay, so I think we have covered a lot of your questions. So a lot of them are more or less in the same vein. So I think all of your concerns have been answered. I just want to thank Dr. Kristine. I wanted to ask also, what do you think about ParentTown? Do you think this is actually helpful for moms?
I'm a mom. Okay. Although I'm not a millennial mom. fortunately, I really browse the internet right now for information. And one thing I'll tell you, there are a lot of information there. It's sometimes difficult for you to distinguish what is right and what is wrong. So I think it's really good if you start to consult an expert to see whether what your concepts are correct or not. So I think it's a very good avenue for you to learn more about how parenting is. Because it's hard to be a mom, right?
And this is why we have asked the expert.
Okay.
So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
KG. It has
It's
been
my
such
pleasure.
I was just gonna say the same thing. It's been such a pleasure, and I hope you guys tune in for other Ask the Expert sessions.